Hi, I'm Michael Day, a teacher, a nature photographer, and traveler. This video is about exploring the rich culture of the Inca people and the magnificent ruins at Machu Picchu. At the end of the video, there's some information about my blog and how to contact me. If you'd like to see more videos, hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Thanks for watching. The Inca ruins at Machu Picchu rightly deserve to be included in any top 10 listings of human-made wonders in the world. Constructed in the mid-1400s on a small saddle perched between two mountains, abandoned suddenly 100 years later, and rediscovered in 1911, Machu Picchu is testament to the beliefs and ingenuity of the Inca people. But why did the Inca build and then leave Machu Picchu? Why this setting? And importantly for us, why did Susan and I visit when we were not all that keen on experiencing Machu Picchu? Just too many visitors. Like what is happening to many national parks and special places in the U.S., tourists were simply loving Machu Picchu to death. By 2018, up to 5,000 people were visiting Machu Picchu daily. Over 1.5 million people each year, visiting a site whose ruins rest on a ridge no longer than the size of 6 American football fields. But we did visit in May 2018 and were truly moved by the experience. For the most part, all the credit goes to the builders of Machu Picchu. But our tour company deserves a great deal of credit too, and our thanks. Shortly before COVID-19 spread around the world, closing borders and canceling international travel plans for many, Susan and I decided to visit Peru, primarily to cruise the Amazon River, but also to explore the sacred valley of the Incas, leaving our visit to Machu Picchu unresolved. For the first time, we booked a trip with National Geographic Expeditions. Begun in 1999, Nat Geo Expeditions was highly recommended by friends for their ability to tailor-make trips per their clients' desires. Since we had a general sense of what we wished to do and see in the Sacred Valley, perhaps even to endure the crowds at Machu Picchu, Nat Geo customized our itinerary, arranged in-country flights, booked lodging, and assigned an excellent guide and driver to oversee our visit. Our final itinerary was a week-long trip to the Sacred Valley of the Incas, capped off by 2 visits to Machu Picchu. Our journey to the Sacred Valley began with a short flight from Lima, Peru's coastal capital city, to Cusco, by road nearly 700 miles away, southeast. In elevation, Cusco is over 11,000 feet, highest city in elevation we've ever visited. Its population was approaching 430,000 people. Cusco is delightful. Founded in the 12th century by a tribe of shepherds, Cusco became capital city of the Inca Empire. It is commonly believed city planners outlined the streets of Cusco in the shape of a puma, one of 3 sacred Inca animals, and the narrow cobblestone streets continue to capture a bit of its splendor. With the exception of the ruins of Sacsayhuaman, the citadel on the hill, little remains of Inca architecture in their capital city. For that, we'd need to wait until our visit to the Sacred Valley and to their culmination achievement, Machu Picchu. Instead, the impact of Spanish colonization of Cusco is clearly visible. Ground Plaza, churches, cathedral, and colonial-style residences dominate the city. Culminating his conquest of the Inca Empire in 1533, the Spanish explorer Pizarro destroyed most of Cusco's structures. for the brutal and sad story of the Spanish conquest, I highly recommend Kim McQuarrie's The Last Days of the Incas, published in 2007. And though I detest the brutality and destruction of the Spanish invasion, it's hard not to appreciate Spanish colonial architecture. For example, our hotel, the Inca Terra La Casona, was a 16th century manor house, originally built on an Inca army training ground. Recently restored to its original architecture, La Casona is truly lovely. Stone walls, courtyard, colonial furniture, pre-Columbian textiles, surrounded by cobblestone streets, and a short walk to the Plaza de Armas and Cathedral. What follows are a few photos of Cusco. Who were the Inca? By definition, the Inca was the ruler or king of his peoples. But soon Inca became the name given to the peoples themselves. The Inca were among the Quechua, people speakers of the Quechua language, and the indigenous people of South America who first arrived on the central coast of Peru over 4,500 years ago. By the time the Spanish arrived in 1524, the Inca Empire stretched over 2,000 miles north to south and had an estimated population of around 10 million people. Home to the Quechua is the Andean highlands, agricultural farmers in the lower altitude regions, and pastoral farmers in the higher regions of the Andes. As a reminder, the Andes Mountains are the longest mountain chain in the world, stretching along the entire west coast of South America, a distance of 4,500 miles. Today, over 5 million Quechua live in Peru, as well as another 6 million living in the surrounding countries of Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Bolivia, and Ecuador. In Peru, many Quechua women continue to dress in colorful clothing and wear distinctive hats, with men often wearing hand-woven ponchos. One striking feature of the Quechua is their rich tradition of weaving, which we were able to observe during our visit to the Sacred Valley. As noted earlier, it was from the Quechua living in the Peruvian Andes the Inca Empire formed in the early 1200s. And by the mid-1400s, the Incas were incorporating, through conquest or assimilation, large portions of western South America, stretching from today's Ecuador to the north and northern Chile to the south. The Inca Empire has been called one of the greatest imperial states in human history. It was first attacked by the Spanish in 1532, and within 40 years, it was no more. The Spanish invaders, riding on horses and covered in armor, plundered and destroyed. But many achievements of the Inca live on. Without use of the wheel, draft animals for pulling, knowledge of iron or steel, or system of writing, the Inca were masters of creativity in engineering, agriculture, and the arts. In the course of our time in the Sacred Valley and visits to Machu Picchu, we observed numerous accomplishments of the Quechua and the Inca Empire. The Sacred Valley is an extremely fertile valley, irrigated by the Urubamba River. Running east to west, the valley stretches about 12 miles, from the towns of Pisca to Ollantaytambo. The legacy of the empire is clearly visible. During our visit, we stayed at another Inca Terra property, the Inca Terra Hacienda Urubamba. Perched on a hillside with lovely views of the valley, the hotel reflected both Indian and Spanish colonial influences. Designed as an estate, with expansive views of the valley, 24 private casitas, a dramatic main lodge with wall-sized windows, friendly bar, excellent restaurant, and lovely art and furnishings, we were overwhelmed by the ambiance of Inca Terra Hacienda. We loved the peaceful walks from our private little house to the main lodge, passing through a saddle-lined entrance to a courtyard lined with pre-Columbian textiles adorning the walls. Just beautiful. Our time in the Sacred Valley included visits to the Inca ruins and market at Pisca, where we first viewed hillside agricultural terraces designed for crops like potatoes, some still in use, and for the first time saw the lovely stonework of an Inca citadel, perched on a hilltop, involving an army of dedicated laborers, tasked with pushing and pulling large granite boulders up the hillside. We later shopped for our Quechua gifts at a large village market. We also visited the fascinating Inca terraces at Murray, consisting of several circular depressions, perhaps an early agricultural experiment station of sorts. And the expansive and extremely colorful flowing salt mines of Maras. And we spent a delightful hour with Quechua weavers at the village of Chincheros, learning about their ancient craft, marveling at their patience, simplicity of method, and precision, delighted by their Peruvian clothes, red circular hats, sweaters, shawls, white shirts and black skirts, and charming long braids. We also purchased a few hats and scarves. We also visited the Inca city and ruins of Ollantaytambo. We walked cobblestone streets lined with running water canals and toured a small stone house with guinea pigs called Kui running about, cooked their favorite national dish. And we climbed the Inca stairs to the fortress or temple of Ollantaytambo, once again passing large agricultural terraces. Built in the 1400s as an estate for Pachacuti, perhaps the greatest Inca ruler. Years of reign 1438-1472, whose statue appears in the famous Plaza de Armas in Cusco, and the setting for a famous assault on the Spanish invaders by Manco Inca. Ollantaytambo dramatically captures another aspect of the Inca, their relationship to setting, beliefs in the Inti, the Incan sun god, perched atop the ruins of Ollantaytambo, with powerful views of town below, valley, and snow-capped mountain peaks, are remains of the uncompleted Temple of the Sun. Imagine standing on this ridge above 9,000 feet elevation, enveloped by majestic views, feeling the common chill of the Andes, and then, each morning, feeling the first warmth of the sun. Not surprising, one would find in the sun's glow and touch a very worthy source of comfort and devotion, attested by the Inca himself. An aside, where I live in Laramie, Wyoming, the elevation is above 7,000 feet. It snows a lot and can be bitterly cold. we also greatly value and long for the warmth of the sun. Unfortunately, tourists often overlook the town and ruins of Ollantaytambo, given their haste to reach Machu Picchu. But in 1911, Hiram Bingham III did stop here on his journey up the Urubamba in search of Wonderland. When we departed the Sacred Valley, it was from the train station in Ollantaytambo, via a slow but very picturesque and enjoyable train ride to Agua Caliente, covering a little less than 20 miles in an hour and a half. Agua Caliente is the main terminal for travelers from Cusco to Machu Picchu. And in so many ways, Agua Caliente has the feel and appearance of an end-of-track town, crowded and loud. But fortunately, we avoided much of the hustle and bustle by staying in our third Inca Terra hotel, the Inca Terra Machu Picchu. Truly an oasis, located near the railroad track town entrance with extensive natural grounds, wonderful for nature walks, exploration, solitude, lovely secluded rooms, and an excellent staff and amenities, where I swam in a very cold but refreshing pool, where Susan received a wonderful massage, and where we found much comfort after visiting Machu Picchu. Before sharing a few color photos of Machu Picchu, let's remember for a moment the personal discovery of Machu Picchu by Hiram Bingham III on July 24, 1911. Wonderfully covered with 28 black and white photographs in the April 1913 cover story issue of the National Geographic magazine, titled In the Wonderland of Peru, and again published years later in Bingham's 1948 publication, Lost City of the Incas. While searching for another site, Vilcabamba, believed to be the last capital and hidden refuge of the Incas during the Spanish invasion, Bingham came upon the overgrown ruins of Machu Picchu. In the National Geographic piece, Bingham writes of his personal discovery, and I quote, "The superior character of the stonework, the presence of these splendid edifices, and of what appeared to be an unusually large number of finely constructed stone dwellings led me to believe that Machu Picchu might prove to be the largest and most important ruin discovered in South America since the days of the Spanish conquest." End of quote. He was right. What follows are a few black and white images taken in May 2018 of the stone dwellings of Machu Picchu. We close with a collection of photos of Machu Picchu, taken during two visits. Our first, an afternoon visit, when we trekked a mile trail along the flank of Machu Picchu to the Sun Gate, where hikers taking the popular Inca Trail from Ollantaytambo first glimpsed the ruins. Our second visit was early morning to experience sunrise on the ruins. Breathtaking and highly recommended. Photos were taken from 4 vantage points: above, from the Sun Gate to the south, from both the western and eastern side of the ruins, and from the north, below Huayna Picchu. Machu Picchu was the culmination and showpiece of our visit to the Sacred Valley. And though we did have to navigate the crowds and rise extremely early to board before 6 a.m., one of the first buses heading up the hill to the ruins, it was worth it. To experience greatness, human achievement on a grand scale, was indescribable and so very humbling. Once again, a royal residence built high on a hilltop. This time on a saddle separated by two mountains, Machu Picchu to the south and Inca Picchu to the north, flanked to the east and west by agricultural terraces, fed by guided springs, and in the center, a main plaza, dividing the grounds between sacred and secular, royal and common, rural and urban. And above and to the west of the main plaza, the placement of the sacred plaza, whose orientation and windows faced east, to catch each day the rising sun, topped by a pyramidal structure where the sacred Intihuatana is located, the place where the sun gets tied each morning. Lovely. Now a few remaining photos. That's our video. If you saw a photo you liked and wish a copy, visit my blog at michael-day.org, where you can contact me. The blog address may also be a useful site for those who would like to further examine the link between adult education, wonder, curiosity, adventure, and travel. Happy travels.